I'd like to share with you 13 reasons to plant an oak tree. Here we go. Number one, oak trees are number one in supporting caterpillars in Jefferson County. So I'm in Louisville, and oak trees are number one in supporting caterpillars. The reason that's important is that caterpillars are a strong indication of how much energy is flowing through an ecosystem. Caterpillars grow up to become butterflies and moths. They become pollinators. Caterpillars are bird food. 96% of terrestrial birds depend on insects at some point in their life cycle. And many of them, depend on especially caterpillars when they're raising their young because they go down smooth. So caterpillars are very important, and oaks are number one in Jefferson County in supporting caterpillars, including the bantam maple dagger moth, the variable oak leaf caterpillar, the spun glass slug, the white furcula, the clymene moth, the rosy maple moth, and the green striped maple worm. And there are 470 additional types of caterpillars that are supported by an oak tree. Oaks are number one. Reason number two, oaks are number one in 84% of the counties in the United States. Take the whole continental United States, and oak is number one in supporting caterpillars and, by extension, other wildlife and ecosystems. Number three, oak trees provide living spaces for birds. According to Doug Tallamy, cavities that develop in living and dead oak giants supply vital nesting sites for dozens of species of birds, including chickadees, wrens, downy woodpeckers, hairy woodpeckers, flickers, owls, and bluebirds. Reason number four to plant an oak tree is that oaks provide nuts for mammals such as deer, squirrels, and chipmunks. Reason number five, oaks provide nuts for birds such as blue jays. In fact, the blue jays will get the nuts and plant them, and they don't remember where they plant them, so that's how more oak trees grow. So the blue jay and oaks depend on each other in that way. Reason number six to plant an oak tree is that they're better than ginkgo. Oaks are native. Ginkgos are non-native. Ginkgo is a nice tree, but there's nothing an oak tree does. There's nothing a ginkgo does that an oak tree won't do. Non-native trees like ginkgos are a food desert for our local wildlife and our local ecosystems. Number seven, oaks are better than zelkova. Zelkova looks like an elm, but it's a non-native tree, and it's a food desert for our local wildlife. Reason number eight to plant an oak tree is that it's better than a Norway maple. Norway maple is the most popular selling shade tree in the United States. It's highly invasive. It's terrible for our local ecosystems, and it is a food desert for our caterpillars and our other insects and our wildlife. Number nine, oak is better than a Calorie pear or a Bradford pear. So these Bradford pears are planted by developers and other people, but it's a food desert. It's invasive. It is taking over our woodlands. It is bad news. Calorie pear, aka Bradford pear, is bad news. So oaks are better than Calorie pears. That's why I want you to plant an oak, not a Calorie pear. Reason number 10 to plant an oak tree is that too many oak trees are being cut down for timber. Don't get me started on timber. Timber is bad news. It's not about the economy. It's about exploiting our natural resources for profit. Reason number 11 to plant an oak tree is that, like all trees, an oak tree is going to filter the water. When the rain falls, the worst thing that can happen to a drop of rain is to go rushing into the stream, because that's a lot of pollution. So oak trees, like all trees, a tree can hold like 25 to 100 gallons of water. A full-grown tree can hold 25, 50, 100 gallons of water that falls. It clings to the leaves. It soaks in. It's really good, it filters the water, and it's good for the water cycle. Reason number 12 to plant an oak tree is that it cools the air. In Louisville, we have the fastest growing urban heat island in the country. We need to cool our air in Louisville. Oak is an excellent shade tree, plus all the benefits for wildlife. So plant an oak because it cools the air. Reason number 13, and the last reason to plant an oak tree, is that it absorbs carbon. We need to absorb carbon from the atmosphere because of climate change. We need to absorb as much carbon as we can from the atmosphere. When trees and plants grow, they take carbon from the atmosphere and they store it in their roots, they store it in their leaves, they store it in their tissues. So plant an oak tree because it absorbs carbon. So that's 13 reasons to plant an oak tree.